LoFiOldMan Deep Dive, 1981 Heerby. Hello, tubers. Intro. Why buy a Chipson, which is an outright counterfeit? We can get an Araya Pro, Bacchus, Bernie, Buskers, Edwards, Heerby, Heritage, Ibanez, Maison, Photogenic, Sire, or Tokai. If we can find it, we can also get an Orville, which is the legal Japanese brother of Gibson. Or we can get an Epiphone, some of which have actual Gibson pickups. Or we can dig deep into the marketplace and buy a cheap, used Gibson. Yes, I did consider featuring a Gibson, but to do that, I would have to get one. And being an architect, I wanted to respect the IP of Gibson. Yes, that IP has been abused for decades, but to even talk about an outright counterfeit isn't respectful, at least for me. We do have an alternative. This here is a Heerby made by the Kasuga Musical Instruments Manufacturing Company from the 70s to the 80s. The company also made OEM guitars for Yamaha, ESP, and Saga before closing in the 90s. The little secret with this brand is that it also carries Maxon pickups. So this Heerby is like a poor man's lawsuit Les Paul, but with the same pickups as the premium lawsuit brands such as Ibanez and Greco. However, it is difficult to establish what model this is. No one at that time realized that one day people will care about what Maxon pickups are installed in the guitar. Japanese guitar models are usually classified using numbers. The number corresponds to the amount of yen needed to buy the guitar. Ergo, the higher the number, the more expensive it is, and the more premium the build and the pickups. That said, I do not care what model this is. Let's just have a listen to what it can do. I'm sure a few years ago I would have driven myself crazy trying to establish the model, but now no longer. I'm also sure that someone has covered the history of lawsuit guitars quite extensively. In my recollection, they are extremely detailed in blogs and hobbyists' websites, and more cursorily in YouTube. Cultural icon. What Gibson needs to understand is the Les Paul standard with a sunburst and two humbuckers is less of a model of a guitar and more of a cultural icon. It has decades of playing by famous artists to back it up, and how the company uses, abuses, or misuses its status as a cultural icon, and at the same time, to maintain a sustainable business model, it's both the boon and bane of Gibson. Learning from current events, it's not about lawsuits and bullying the customers and smaller guitar manufacturers. It doesn't speak well of an owner of a cultural icon. It's also about not treating your customers and distributors like absolute morons. I think y'all know I'm talking about another brand also. The fact that I'm explaining this with the irony of featuring a cheap lawsuit copy should not denigrate the fact that for a handful of guitar designs, the Les Paul is up there as one of the most iconic guitar designs in history. As to how a cultural icon will survive the times is solely at the hands of the creator. How that icon remains relevant today and in the future depends on the owner of the icon. But like all old guitar brands, they have changed owners many, many times. It's just a question of how the guy who is presently holding the ball is handling the situation. I'm not buying any more guitars, but I'm not selling my Fenders either. They have nothing to do with the shit show that is currently happening. And I'm sure that someone in Gibson, in his pajamas and slippers and sipping iced tea, is quietly observing how Fender gets out of this mess. While this is a lawsuit feature, rest assured there will be videos of Gibsons. Like I said, this deep dive is a random sampling. Sonic clarification. For purposes of this video, the Les Paul we are talking about here is a solid body with two humbuckers. The Junior with the P90s is not the topic, nor the Deluxe, which is a Les Paul shape with mini humbuckers. Yes, Gibson labels its products Les Paul this and Les Paul that, but sonically they are different. Moving forward, when we mention Les Paul in this video, that will be the Les Paul standard or studio or custom or whatever with the two humbuckers because these are sonically the same group. Yes, there will be nuances between burst bucker pros, custom buckers, and T-taps, but these fall in a similar sonic range. Ironically, many guitars that do not have the Les Paul body shape will still fall into the same sonic group as the Les Paul. Solid body to humbuckers. Ladies and Les Pauls. For this video, I've decided to take a break from the testosterone and focus on the ladies. To be more specific, these are lady singers that have guitarists using Les Pauls in the band, whether it is hers or someone else's. As mentioned earlier, we will focus on a Les Paul with two humbuckers, and if we need to stretch that a bit more, a solid body guitar with two humbuckers. Also, I will limit the clips to songs I am familiar with. For me, it is very difficult to feature artists whom I have not heard before, just to do a clip which I doubt I can do justice. As an example, I am vaguely familiar of Laura Cox, a French lady who now rocks a Junior, which technically has a P90, but she used to have a Maison Les Paul, which is another lawsuit Les Paul. But since I am not familiar with her songs, I cannot do justice to her music. Maybe in another video. We'll see. In full circle, it is good that Gibson was smart enough to sponsor her. Similarly, Joan Jett rocks a double cut junior, but it has a humbucker, and her second guitarist sometimes uses a Les Paul, so that counts here. Also, I will cut myself some technical and artistic slack. Some long and fast runs I will not try to do in one take. I just splice the good cuts together. These clips are one-day wonders, meaning it takes me a day or two to learn them, then shoot them, then move on to another clip. Honestly, it is not easy to find ladies with Les Pauls, even ladies with other guitarists in the band with Les Pauls. But I will not try to misrepresent, meaning, if they're using the Telecaster Deluxe or a Moss-Right or a Jazzmaster, they won't be included here. But if I saw them live with a Les Paul, I will consider that. Clips and demos. The demos are the hardest, longest, and most fun activities for these deep dives. Doing these deep dives is somehow a reaction to watching a 20-minute guitar feature, which is composed of 19 minutes and 50 seconds of talking and 10 seconds of hearing what the guitar actually sounds like. I'm a guitar nerd, and yes, I appreciate the chit chat about the appointments, but at the end of the day, I want to know how the guitar sounds like. On the other side of the spectrum, I also don't want to be OCD and compare how the guitar sounds like to a vintage or a reissue. I just need a rough idea of how the guitar sounds like because ultimately, even with all the A-B comparisons available, it's still buyer beware because there are so many variables. I will try to make these videos half talking and half playing. You be the judge if this is a better format. I'm also trying not to half-ass the demos. My ears decide if the clips are bad, either I scrap them or do a retake. As usual, It is the guitar straight into a Vox VT40X and shot with a cell phone. Heerby. All right, that was a very long preamble. As mentioned before, this is a Heerby, a poor man's lawsuit guitar that also has Maxon pickups, the premium of which is arguably considered comparable to the vintage PAFs of Gibson from the 1957 to 1960 era. We do not have those aspirations here. Let's just try the guitar at hand. Body. One occasional benefit of Japanese lawsuit guitars is that they are lighter than the real Gibsons, but that is not applicable to every lawsuit guitar. This Heerby fortunately sits squarely at 8 pounds or 3.6 kilos, my upper limit of how heavy a guitar should be. Les Pauls are usually notorious for being boat anchors, but I also have had the privilege of meeting a 12-pound Strat, so there are exceptions, but Les Pauls are up there in the overweight section. I don't care about sustain or tone. If they're too heavy, that's no bueno for me. So if you're guessing for a Les Paul, I suggest you ask about the weight. This Herbie seems to be around 1981, but we can't be sure about it because the first digit of the serial number has been defaced. That also means that somewhere in the 45 years of its checkered past, it may have been stolen. And the first thing people will do to stolen guitars is to deface the serial number so it can't be traced back to the OG owner. For Gibson type guitars, no matter how cheap they are, I would like them to be set neck like the OG products, even if they are just cheap copies or Epiphones. Pickups. I don't know what was done with the pickups, but these are the worst looking pickups I've ever seen. I did check the serial numbers, they're from 1978, and the bridge pickup looks like it has been opened and rewired. But they look like legit Maxon pickups. The basic vanilla Maxon pickup in Greco terminology is the U1000. That's what's in the cheapest Greco Les Pauls. Heerby has another terminology for those pickups in their catalog, but for our peace of mind, let's just assume that these are the most basic Maxon pickups. Electronics. This was supposed to be my first deep dive guitar. But upon checking, I found out that the bridge pickup sounded weaker than the neck pickup. These days, I don't open a guitar unless my ears notice something is wrong. And true enough, upon checking the electronics, this guitar has been messed with. I'm not sure if the original Heerby electronics had tiny pots, but some wires have clearly been cut and the capacitors are new. Upon checking, the capacitors are zero point 0.1 microfarads. Standard Les Paul capacitors are 0.22 microfarads. The higher the microfarads, the darker the sound. To my ears, the neck pickup sounded alright, but the bridge pickup sounded too weak and too bright. So I ordered bigger pots, capacitor for the bridge pickup, and retained the old capacitor for the neck pickup. It's not a perfect setup, but for this guitar, this is what I tried. We're not trying to make the ultimate Les Paul here, we're just trying a few things out. Now, electronics is not a strength of mine. In fact, I only learned soldering and electronics when I got back to guitars. So we could say I have around 5 years of amateurish experience with electronics. I can fix my own guitars, but I can't charge you for fixing yours. I'm not that good. Also, it is a work in progress, meaning after putting in the new electronics, I had to open the cavity 8 or 9 times to fix a buzz or bad grounding or no sound. Ultimately, I got it into a playable condition. The more we play the guitar, the better it becomes out of necessity. Neck. It has Grover-looking tuners, a rosewood fretboard, and plastic inlays. It has a relatively slim neck, perhaps 70s style, but not as slim as an Ibanez Superstrat. We can't expect a 45-year-old guitar to be flawless, and I really don't mind the quality for as long as it sounds and plays fine. The neck tension and string action are okay, so it is credit to Gibson and the clones to get this right with a set neck guitar. Verdict. To my ears, this plays like how a Les Paul should, perhaps with some slight differences given that I kept the zero point 0.1 microfarad capacitor on the neck pickup. The standard would have been a 0.022, which would have made the neck pickup sound brighter. There are some advantages with making the two pickups sound different from each other, especially when playing both rhythm and lead. This sounds just like any Les Paul. It has the sonic limitations of a Les Paul, with tones on the darker side. I have limited patience with fixing guitars. I will devote a day or two to get things done, but I don't want to rush things. If I cannot fix all the issues, I give myself some time before going back and finally making everything right. This guitar fits into that bracket. It is better than it was before, but it needs a little more fixing before it will be gig ready. But the fact that I was able to record clips with it means that it's a much better guitar now. Thank you for your time and see you on the next video.